Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Juan Dhas, and welcome to this new lesson course I'm doing on how to make a strong solo, or rather, what makes a strong solo. Um, I wanted to make this course as a great companion piece for anyone who's already working on some exercises to improve their soloing in one way or another if they're focusing on a particular area, because I find students sometimes they're working on all this technical stuff and incredible stuff that helps their facility, helps their mental agility, helps them understand language, but sometimes in the process of application things don't really stick, or things just have a hard time connecting. And for example, either a student can learn how to play the changes and they're playing the changes well, but something's wrong with the rhythm and the phrasing. Or they might be phrasing beautifully, but much like before, the rhythm isn't quite there. Or in other cases, maybe they're rhythmically quite interesting, but their melodic content is on a bit of a flat line and the solo has no development. So I wanted to look at three key areas I've worked on with a few students, and it's seen some interesting results on what makes a strong solo. So what I'm going to do for this video, I'm going to give a brief overview of the three parts. This is part one of the series. Overview of the three parts and dive into the first part. Now, the first part is what I like to refer to as melodic clarity, or just clarity in general. The second part I like to refer to as just rhythm. And the third part is phrasing, which will refer to how you develop your solo, the spaces you leave, how you play around with how you play, not so much concerned with the what in particular. And the reason I was playing blues at the beginning is that I'm going to apply everything in a bit more of a universal context, so that no matter what level of development you're at, you can start taking some of these concepts and hopefully start building stronger solos. And if you're learning to listen to the art form and listen to jazz, hopefully find something that is a little... I don't want to say find something, but find stuff that you relate to because of that, the strength of that soloist in that setting, and be able to apply that to your own playing. So, getting into the three parts: melodic clarity, rhythm, and phrasing. Melodic clarity. I use this as not so much as playing the changes, because someone can play the right scale or the right arpeggio over the right chord, but are you doing it in a sense that, and communicating that in a sense that shows these are the changes? For example, I can play on a blues, like what I was doing in the intro, and hopefully you can hear that there's a form of a blues, or there's blues vocabulary, and you can hear that, and you can hear when I make each chord change. Some students have trouble with this, and it's not just because of maybe X scale works over X chord, that might be what they've started with, but maybe they're not making those connections, or they're probably not flowing as smoothly. Some of the problem spots I see here when people struggle with melodic clarity is maybe the playing sometimes sounds a little angular, and by that I mean unintentionally angular, or it sometimes lacks a sense of conviction, it's sometimes a little floaty, and maybe doesn't represent the tune or the changes or the progression in the best way possible. Rhythm is one of those aspects. Now, many people cover rhythm and time specifically, as in beat placement, where you're placing it on the beat. I'm referring to rhythm more so in, is your phrasing rhythmic, or is it just kind of a consistent monotone dynamic, if you would. As in, for example, if we take a phrase like ba ba do ba, that's a very strong rhythmic statement. And sometimes when I see people lacking in the rhythmic aspect, sometimes their playing sounds a little unsure, or it leaves a little to the imagination and maybe sounds a little directionless. Or the melodies, which are beautiful melodies, maybe they're hitting the changes perfectly. The conviction of which they're playing the changes or playing the melodic part doesn't really translate well because it's not being delivered in the format of interesting rhythmic phrasing. Not just playing consistently and just playing constantly. I'm not referring to runs, I'm just referring to, is there a rhythmic undertone to everything you're playing? And by all means, use your lines if you need to or want to. And lastly, phrasing, the all-encompassing thing that tends to sometimes be a little nebulous and hard to understand, is what I would refer to: how does someone play something? How does someone articulate something? How are their dynamics? Is their solo just a straight flat line and they're just regurgitating language or licks, or regurgitating material they already know? Or is there a sense of story or development? Are they playing along an axis? And we'll get into that further down the line in the series. So if I see someone struggling with their phrasing, some of the things I mentioned tend to become problem spots, in the sense, maybe their solos feel like they don't go anywhere. Maybe their solos feel like they're kind of stuck. Maybe they keep playing the same solo all the time. Or maybe there's not enough interest that can be gained out of the instrument. And the guitar is a really beautiful instrument that, when used to its full effectiveness, has more than just a straight monosyllabic sound. There are many possibilities available. Doesn't matter what guitar you're using. And usually what I've seen when I work with students and I make this reference and I try draw this reference to players they already listen to, really strong soloists have this in one way or another. And sure, maybe they lean more to the melodic side of things. Maybe they lean more to rhythm. They lean more on their phrasing and their ability to craft a narrative than, let's say, blast lines through a set of changes. But they really strong soloists have this together, and it helps give a sense of direction and conviction to what they play. So now that we've looked at the overview, let's dive into the first one, and I'm going to spend the rest of the lesson for this part covering melodic clarity, ways you can work on it, and a couple of things. And I'll be issuing a small accompanying PDF that will have some of the exercises written out, or at least references to what I'm talking about, so that you can refer to it as you're watching this, or if you choose to have it on your music stand in your practice session, you can refer to it then. So let's get into the first part.